welcome to all the attendees here. In fact, we have been waiting for quite a long to run such a session. And the reason is very much visible. The reason is that we have seen the students who are trying to get into different type of careers. And most of the parents, without much of the awareness about the futuristic careers, tend to stop their children. And naturally, what happens is the character, the behavior, that change over a period of time. The child's behavioral pattern, or somehow we feel that if the parents are unable to nurture their skills, whatever skills they have, and a best example is everybody wants, or most of the parents want their child to be an engineer or a doctor. What is the other option? Why don't they explore? And understanding whether the child is ready. I won't say ready, whether the child is passionate to become an engineer or not. That matters a lot. So we have been thinking about doing such a session. And we wanted to educate the parents, the teachers, the academic counselors, the educators on how they should proceed with this. So what we have been thinking again on how we can help the parents, giving them more and more idea of how they should nurture the skills of the child. So it is nothing but more a kind of affection, supporting them emotionally, being a role model. So we call it as parenting. So parenting, the role of parents in child's career. So myself, I am Maheshwara Chaitanya from Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham. I am the Director of Admissions, and what inspired me and my colleague, Dr. Shoury, to have such a session. So this is our own brainchild. I have been talking to the students for past 15, 16 years. And most of the students whom I used to teach in engineering, maybe 15 to 20% of the students joined just because of the parental pressure. And what we should do with that? Is it required to push them to engineering or medicine? Or how do we listen to them? How do we give them emotional support? How do we supervise them? It is much more crucial, because we have seen that not just the children, but even us, we are also somewhere addicted to technology. So I'll just give you a brief about myself, my background, because that is closely related to this talk. Then how parents can be a friend and a co-worker or a co-learner, because you will see in the coming up slides. And steps in effective career planning. It is not much about the behavior that Shoury will be covering, or how do you parent actually, that Shoury will be covering. Why do you need setting of the goal and making the children achieve their goals? And very short introduction to Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham. So this will not be more than something like 25 to 30 minutes. Now, I studied in a government school till 10th class. I was so ambitious to become a doctor. But maybe because the destiny never wanted me to be a doctor, I was not able to score much marks in biology in 10th standard. So I had to choose commerce. Again, whether I liked it or not, that's a different story or a question, but I had to choose commerce. So I was so adamant that I never wanted to, get money from parents to do my study. So I started working and did the learning in parallel. So completed BCom +2 and BCom. Then you see the jumping from the commerce to computer science. That was a game changer in the life. That is the whole reason why I'm here today. From commerce to computer. So there is a myth that some technological subjects can be learned only by some people who know this stuff. And learning is not limited. Learning is not confined to few people. Anybody can learn. So that is the first thing. And I have been associated with Amrita for past 24 years, starting 1998. Both academic and administrative experience is 16 years, and currently serving as the Director Admissions at Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham. One of the campuses, Amritapuri, I'm handling. I'm the Deputy Controller of Exams, and one of the most important, so passionate, so close to my heart is holding the international competitions, and I'm the contest director for the International Collegiate Programming Contest, widely known as ICPC. It is a programming competition, computer programming competition. So how parents can act as a, not act, can be a co-learner or a co-worker or a friend. So these are some dialogues that happens between the children and their parents. Mom, I don't want to eat right now. Eat right now or else I won't give you food later. That's dhamki. That is a kind of threat. Maybe it is for just as a joke, but the child may feel that we are starting to create a fear among the children. Dad, it is my time to go out and play. I can't study any further. This is the most important aspect in life. We keep pushing the children to, even the teacher. There are some teachers who keep pushing the children to keep studying. When I used to teach, the total, the class session ended for almost like 50 minutes. Usually what I do is I'll stop teaching after 30 minutes. Later on, it will be a Q&A session because the receptivity, the listening capacity of the students is limited to somewhere between 20-25 minutes, not beyond that. So again, what we do, the parents will again threaten, finish the work I have given you first. Because you are pressurizing the mind of the child to study at that specific point of time where he is not able to concentrate, which is very much required for the studies. Here are a few facts. Post-COVID scenario, children are much more smarter. We never used to allow them to use the laptops or any sort of devices till 2020 March. After that, we compelled them to use it. And we had latest gadgets, smartphones or laptops or tablets, whatever, making them to attend the online sessions. They are much more exposed to internet, social media than parents, even than me or than you all. And we make them, or we give them cell phones to pacify the console. So it happens at the early age. Parents may be burdened with responsibilities in the workplace that will definitely affect looking after the child, listening to the children. Imposing may definitely sometimes boomerang. And the communication means it is not just direct talking over the phone. It is WhatsApp, Telegram, FB Messenger. You keep chatting. And generally there is a comparison of the self in the school. So students will compare, or the parents will compare, why you are not scoring this much mark, just like the other boy or girl. And there's a lack of confidence. A large number of students suffer with this lack of confidence. And during the examinations, they are much more stressed. So how do you solve all this? You must have a strong emotional connect. You take them out in the evenings, or at least, weekends, during the holidays, spending time with them together. And you explore what happened in the class and what has been happening in the school. It is always better to avoid creating the situations that will create fear among them. Let us not make them fearful. Let us take things easy. But of course, we have to advise them. We have to make them serious, but not by making them more and more fearful. There must be a right balance between the freedom and discipline. So my parents allowed me to go for the movies at early age. I think that is something which I got benefited out of. In the later stages, I came to know that, okay, because of the freedom that my parents gave me, I grew up. But definitely there is a part of discipline required. So before whatever we enforce, okay, you be at home before 8 o'clock or before 9 o'clock or by 9:30. Why are you wanting them to come early or at a specific time? So make them understand about the consequences, which is very, very clear. Now, understanding their issues in classes is another important aspect. We can get updates from the teachers, counselors, and principals, and let us not scold them for mistakes or failures. Always respect their self-esteem. Now, how do we build the career plan? This is something which is more and more important for the children at this point of time. Because you talk about artificial intelligence, you hear about machine learning, you hear about different type of programs now that NEP is coming up, NEP 2020. So what effective career planning can or be implemented in the child's life? Now, understanding their skills and interest. See, aptitude is very crucial. Numerical aptitude, verbal aptitude, reasoning, mechanical. And personality is definitely an important part of the character. As we go through fundamentally the balancing the emotion, are they anxious, or how do they decide for after +2, what career should I choose? Or what are the kind of values they should follow in life? Are they organized enough? Are they active in the different competitions or activities in the school? What all are the social preferences? What all are their interests? Is it realistic interest or investigative, artistic, etc.? So these three fundamental aspects form the basis for career planning. So aptitude is numerical concepts, comfort with numbers, problem solving skills. Because now when they enter into a different world of technology, let us say they are going for humanities program, or they are going for a commerce program. Let us talk about non-engineering. Even if they are going for a non-engineering program, problem solving becomes very, very important. Critical thinking becomes very, very important. A commerce student is required to understand how a mobile app can manage the expenses, income, and give some inputs.
It is somewhere very important to be able to catch on what is actually happening in their particular lives, in the area of their lives. Yeah. I thought we will begin with this video. Yeah. I'm going to play a small video. I want you all to have a look at this. The video has, one of the themes that very starkly stands out in the video is about, gender equality. I would request that you keep the message of gender equality aside. There is another underlying message which comes out in the video, and I would want you to try to identify that, and we'll have a chat on that. So let me just share my screen.
ये है हमारे मोहन बाबू जो कई दिनों के बाद शहर में मेहनत मशक्कत करके घर वापस लौट गए हैं। और ये हैं उनके जिगर के टुकड़े। ए, क्या कर रहा है?
मुझे भी दो ना।
रोटी बनाएगा? ये ले। जिनकी एक हंसी के लिए वे कुछ भी कर सकते हैं।
सुनीता पापा आ गए।
कैसे हाँ ये कितना लिया अच्छा बताओ पापा क्या लाया आपके लिए?
क्या लाए हो पापा?
ये सुनीता रानी के लिए किचन सेट, मेरे विराट कोहली के लिए बैट और बॉल। खुश जाओ चलो।
ये लड्डू मम्मी खाएगी और ये गुड्डू का। ओह सुनीता, तेरी बॉल ने मेरे लड्डू तोड़ दिए। सुनीता की बच्ची।
क्यों मोहन बाबू, चौंक गए? जरा आंखें खोलिए, सब कुछ यहीं दिख जाएगा। हर बच्चा अपनी एक अनोखी पहचान और क्षमता के साथ जन्म लेता है। हुनर और शौक इंसान के लिंग के मोहताज नहीं। सही परवरिश वो है जिसमें बच्चों को, चाहे वो लड़का हो या लड़की, एक खुला आसमान मिले। फर्क लड़के लड़की का नहीं, फर्क है सोच का। आइए सोच बदलते हैं।
I just wanted to invite thoughts from everyone here. One, like I said in the beginning, one aspect is the gender equality message. We'll keep that aside for now. Any other core ideas? You can. Is it possible to unmute them and have them speak? Parvati, is it possible to unmute them and have them speak?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So anyone,
They should raise their hands.
just raise your hands. I would like, we'll unmute you and you can share your thoughts. Yes, this Mr. Arun. Can we unmute? Yes, please go ahead.
Actually, this is precisely what I was hinting at, that one has to encourage the children, or anybody for that matter, to pursue their interests. Now, that is what we don't do. To first of all identify what is their interest and then encourage them to pursue their interest. So how does one achieve this? How does one sort of propagate this kind of a thing? That is the question. So the idea is absolutely right. One has to encourage people to pursue their interests, because that is what is going to give them enjoyment. And to enjoy life is basically what is required.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Any other hands raised?
Yes, sir. Wait a second.
Yes.
Hi, this is Srini here. So the message from that recording is we have certain perception around gender, right? So if a male can do only certain activities, female can do certain activities, but it's not right. So they have different interests. So we have to identify, and then we have to ensure we are giving enough thing to pursue their interest.
Yes, yes, very true. The gender message, yes, it's very stark. We'll keep that aside. We're looking at the other underlying message that's there. And I think you've covered that as well. It's you know, everyone needs equal opportunities. Very true. Thank you. Thank you.
One more is there.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, Ms.
Yes.
Rashmi, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. First of all, thank you for showing such a wonderful video to us. I must say that in the rural and semi-rural areas, though there is a mindset that a girl should get a kitchen set and a boy must get a cricket bat, I was quite happy to see the father not being very shocked or very unhappy when he saw the role reversal of both the children. I like that father who was quite understanding or who got a lesson. And I think from there, the story should begin. Rather than the story should end there, a new story should begin from there, where the father understands the aptitude of both the children.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You've outlined the beginning of my presentation. Dear friends, I must, before I go into this PPT, I must indicate I'm very poor at PowerPoint presentations. So this presentation that I'm going to open is just intended as sort of a sheet with notes on it. Yeah, so that in case in case there is a voice break, you know what we are talking about. Yeah, so just give me a minute while I share this sheet with you. And here we are. Yeah. So the talk today is about teen parenting. The intention is to lend a perspective on this, and I think just taking on you know, from the momentum that's already built, from the thoughts that have been shared by both Mr. Srinivasan, Mr. Arun, and Ms. Rashmi, I believe. See, there is a difference. There is a, you know, there is a change that is required. There is, more importantly, there is an effort to understand is needed as children start entering their teenage years. Yeah, a lot of change. The world's dramatically changed, not just physically, but there is a cognitive change, there is an emotional change, there is a social change, and all these changes, they are interplaying with each other continuously right through teenage years. So, and then as a result of this, you know, the adults, the guardians, not just parents, but all guardians involved, parents, teachers, etc., the expectation from the adults also begin to change. Parenting has evolved over the years. You'll identify with the images that I have collated on the screen. At the top left corner, you'll see, you know, an image of how parenting actually was a couple of decades ago, and then top center and top right shows you about 10 years ago how parenting, you know, eventually a lot of changes happened, and that's where we reached. About 4 years, 5 years ago, you'll see the image on the bottom left, which indicates, you know, how parenting probably was in homes about 4 or 5 years ago. And the bottom right indicates an image of how parenting is probably this year, yeah, or today. So you'll see subtle changes. You'll see a lot of changes between the images on the top row, but you'll see very subtle but strong changes in the two images that I have shared in the bottom rows. Yeah. In one image, you have a person who's, looks like he's focused on work, while there are children around the house. Somebody is drawing something. Somebody's probably got a book open, you know. While on the other image, very similar, but all four are focused intently on whatever they are doing. Yeah, there's very little cross connect. So what then is the story? What then is the story? I think the old game plan, if I may call it that, of parenting was something akin to an air traffic controller. If we've all taken flights at some point of time in our lives before the pandemic, or even now after the pandemic, you notice the air traffic controller. There is no conversation as such. He's got these two boards. He directs, and the pilots follow his direction. That's it. Once the plane is landed, the ground controllers direct where the plane has to turn, how it has to taxi, how it has to park, and their instructions are followed. No questions asked. The new game plan of parenting is what's on your screen. Yeah. So today, from the old game plan, the shift has been drastic. We are now moving into being a coach. Yeah. At this point, I'm going to share another video, and we will have a short discussion on this. The essence, or the essence that I want you to try to focus in this video is, one, there is a dialogue which will happen. The focus need not be on exactly what words are being exchanged, but I'd invite you to try to focus on the causes, or on the thoughts that may be running on in each one of their minds as the dialogue is exchanged. All right, so I need to share my audio.
Good. हाँ मैं आऊंगी. What? Okay, sorry, अभी I can't talk now. ठीक है, अभी plane take off होने वाला है. Bye, bye, bye. Excuse me, sir. I think आप मेरी सीट पे बैठे हैं.
बेटा तुम मेरी वो वाली सीट पे बैठ जाओ. मुझे मेरे बेटे के साथ बैठना है. वो 36E. तो मैं कह रहा था कि सीधी अंगुली से घी नहीं निकले तो टेढ़ी कर देनी चाहिए. गुप्ता ने पैसे देने के लिए मना किया, मैंने अंगुली को टेढ़ा किया और सट्टाक से पैसे गिन दिए.
सर, आई एम सॉरी, पर मैं अपनी सीट पे बैठना चाहती हूँ, तो आप.
ये आजकल के बच्चे भी ना बड़ों की इज्जत करना भी नहीं जानते. एक छोटी सी चीज के लिए भी एडजस्ट नहीं कर सकते. यंग पीपल. मुझे मेरे बेटे के साथ बैठना था, और ये है कि
एक्सक्यूज मी सर, सबसे पहले तो मैं आपको बता दूं कि ये आजकल की यंग बच्ची ने बहुत एडवांस में ही अपनी पसंद की सीट बुक कर ली थी, ताकि आगे जाके मुझे ना किसी और को कोई प्रॉब्लम हो. आपने और आपके यंग बेटे ने ये सब पहले से नहीं सोचा, और अब आप मुझे यहाँ से वहाँ घुमाना चाहते हैं जैसे कि आपका हक है. और ऊपर से आप ये एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं कि मैं आपके ऑर्डर्स मान लूं और दो आदमियों के बीच में अनकंफर्टेबली बैठूं. क्यों? क्योंकि आप बुजुर्ग हो. आपको नहीं लगता कि इज्जत मिलना सबका हक है, और कभी कभी एल्डर्स को भी यंग लोगों की रिस्पेक्ट करनी चाहिए. सर, may I help you? Allow me to show you a seat.
I hope the audio is. I hope the audio came through. Any thoughts? Again, I really like to invite any thoughts on what you pulled out from the seat. One, I think a lot of us relate. Not just. I mean, we may not have been in the same situation, but you'll sort of relate. With the way when you're interacting with teens today, you'll sort of relate with the the kind of pushback that sometimes comes. Any thoughts? Anyone? Just raise your hands. I'd like to hear your perspective.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening. Your name, ma'am, and your perspective.
I'm Ranjana Rishi. My perspective is unthinkingly, at so many times, we tend to make comments without even realizing, that everybody is so full of things these days, and you never know that your comment might be the pinprick that bursts the entire bag of grudges that the other person is carrying. The matter would have been much better had the gentleman not commented about making a generalization about young people not listening or not having respect for the others. He could have been more understanding, and perhaps things would have been pleasant. The lady would not have erupted the way she did.
Thank you,
so
ma'am.
that comment was uncalled for, definitely.
Okay.
The request was fine. The request was fine that he wanted to sit. But if the other person comes back and says that she would not want to change the seat, I think the matter would have ended had he got up and gone back without making that comment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Any other perspectives? More importantly, do you see any parallels from what we see amongst the younger generation? Yes, please go ahead. Mr. Arun, you're unmute. Please go ahead.
Yeah, actually, this is something like you got an entitlement just because you're old. This is an entitlement. This is this goes across all kinds of professions. Just because you have been a professional or you have attained certain position at a certain time, that means you are entitled for certain privileges. You may be retired, but you cannot have the same privileges as what you had during service. So one has to understand that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please. I believe it's Miss Kavita. Please, we will just unmute you. Please hold on. Please go ahead. Sorry, you're not audible. Your voice isn't coming across.
Am I audible now?
Yes, please. Go ahead, Ms. Kavita. Go ahead.
Good evening, sir. So it was a nice video. According to me, it shows that you can't force anyone to give respect to you. And it doesn't come with age. Age is just a number. So your behavior, your aura, your personality should be like that, that somebody should, give you respect automatically. But you can't force, you can't demand that respect. That comes from within. So that is the same scenario with nowadays with children. If you demand respect, they will not give you. But yes, if you deserve that, automatically it will come to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think there's one more hand raised. Please go ahead.
Yes, this is Rashmi once again. I find the girl's response is brutally honest. And we can very clearly see that generation gap here, where the elder person is not ready to accept the reality of what the girl says. So there's a gap in their understanding also. He is and expectations. He is expecting, I think, respect more. She is expecting that her right is there to sit. So she should be actually awarded her right. So there's a difference in opinion and attitude between the two, which is very clearly seen.
Thank you. Thank you. So, yes, please. I think there's one more hand, and Go ahead, Mr. Is this Mr. Srinivasan? Yes. We'll unmute you. Please hold on. Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Srinivasan.
I think it's already covered. So the generation gap, and then as clearly said, like respect will come not by age, it's by what we are doing.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So therefore, then where is the root of all these things? When Miss Kaveri, yes, please go ahead. Hold on. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Also, I feel that, it's a rather myopic kind of parenting. The gentleman was very protective about his son. He wants to sit next to his son. But he also knew that his seat allotted to him was between two other gentlemen. And when he sees this young girl, he has no qualms about asking her to go and sit between these two men. And the girl actually initially does go. I mean, she's ready to comply, and it's only when she sees that she'll be very uncomfortable sitting there that she comes back and very justifiably demands the original seat.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much. My one of the object. Yes, Ms. Rashmi, please go on.
Sorry, sir, in between I just...
No, please go ahead.
I would like to speak on this situation only, as Pam was sharing right now. That of course, when we see, it's easy to blame the youth, the youngsters, that they are not into listening mode or they don't adjust. But if we see, as a parent, he had to teach his child first to be on his own. You were in the same flight. The parent is in the same flight, still wanting to be with the boy and expecting the other person to adjust. So what I believe is we have to teach our children first to accept the things the way they are and to make them more confident so that they can handle themselves. So here it seems more of the old style of parenting. That is why the parent wanted to have a check or maybe control on his own son. We can't judge this girl because she was actually understanding, accepting, but of course, when it was not very comfortable for her, she had to raise her voice. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, Ms. Rashmi. Thank you so much. I think the meat of my PowerPoint has very nicely been brought out in the perspectives that were shared. Very, very true. And if the next stage, what I would like to sort of dig into is try to identify where the root of all these things lies, because I believe once if we have an understanding of the root, then we can actually act. We'll get answers to, like what Mr. Arun had indicated in the beginning. We may not get all the answers, but we might arrive at some way to find answers to the the questions which were raised in the beginning. So taking a thread from Ms. Rashmi, maybe that's his parenting style. Maybe that's that's how he's been he's sort of brought up his son, and he was expecting that all children will probably be brought up in the same way. Taking on that thread from there, there is the one way to sort of help us arrive at some answers is to kind of identify parenting styles prevalent. Yeah, there is some research which has gone into existing parenting or existing mentoring styles when it comes to teens, and the research indicates a couple of styles, and it talks about the outcome. Yeah, what is the outcome? What happens when children are sort of exposed to this particular kind of style? So while the outcome outcome also indicates certain behaviors that get attached to the child because of the parenting thing, this is a short video where I want you to try to focus on not just what behaviors are surfaced, but I want you to try to think on what therefore can be the outcome on the child. And that's what we'll discuss at the end of this video. It's a please bear with me. It's a Western, the research is based It's a Western research. It is based out of Western countries, but you will see the connects to the Indian style of parenting, which also we will discuss once the video is done. Yeah. So there are two aspects I want you to try to focus on when you're looking at the video. Number one, as a result, while each style is quickly discussed and the behaviors are surfaced, I want you to try to focus on what the final outcome will be, or try to think of any businessman or politician who you feel could have had this kind of a parenting style. That's one. And second, try to connect it to the prevailing parenting styles in India. And let's have a discussion on these two once the video is done. I'll just share this. Hold on.
In theory, there are only 4 styles of parenting. Authoritarian parents are controlling and demand obedience without considering the child's point of view. Permissive parents are loving but don't exert any control. There are no rules. Authoritative parents are firm but loving. They encourage independence within limits. Neglecting parents are uninvolved and often uninterested in their own child. Recently, a 5th style was proposed, but we will come back to that later. The styles range from controlling and demanding to complete freedom, and from cold and unresponsive to loving and receptive. Each, authoritative, permissive, authoritarian, and neglectful parents have their place. To understand what it means to grow up with parents from each end of the spectrum, we can imagine the lives of 4 children. Sarah's parents are authoritarian. They love their girl, but they believe that strict rules are important to make Sarah become well-behaved and fit into society. If Sarah cries, she's told to stop. If she talks back, she is sent to the corner for time out. If she forgets to take care of her chores around the house, she is not allowed to play with her toys. Sarah learns that suppressing her emotions and following her duties is the way to get through the day. To get the love of her parents and to avoid making them upset, she becomes obedient. However, because Sarah was never allowed to decide for herself or follow her intrinsic interests, as an adult, she doesn't know what she really wants. She begins living a life that seems perfect to her parents and society, but might leave her unhappy on the inside. Permissive parents, like those of Peter, enjoy their little boys so much that they believe they should fulfill all his wishes, give him full freedom, and never say no. Peter enjoys full control over his parents and gets whatever he wants. If he doesn't want to walk, he'll be carried. If he wants ice cream he gets. If he wants to play games, he'll be playing them all night. Peter grows up completely without borders and does whatever he thinks is right. He never coped with conflict, and he did not learn to control his emotions. The fact that he always got what he wanted made him a bad loser. As he grows older, he often acts inconsiderate and doesn't know his limits. Arthur's authoritative parents respect their child's needs, but believe that kids need freedom within certain limits. Arthur can freely play, but when he's done, he needs to help tidy up. He is allowed to eat ice cream, but only on Sundays. Screen time is limited to 30 minutes a day. There may be conflict, but the parents listen to what Arthur has to say and then lay down the rules. Arthur learns that some things are difficult, but his parents give him all the support he needs to get through it. He develops the strength to endure hardships and to continue following his interests and passions. In class, he bravely expresses his own opinions in an appropriate manner. During breaks, he can show his emotions and act freely. As an adult, he agrees to rules only after they have been discussed and he feels like he understands them. Neglectful parents are usually not present in their children's life. Nora often feels completely alone in the world. She experiences full freedom to do anything she wants to and has plenty of imagination, but she never receives any feedback or even attention. Nora realizes that it doesn't matter what she does because no one cares anyway. The lack of attention leads to a lack of trust in herself and others. She becomes insecurely attached, unable to form healthy relationships, and develops a negative image of herself. To stop feeling unworthy of love, she tries not to feel anything at all. In recent years, over-involved parents who are present in every aspect of their child's life are often referred to as the fifth style. These parents are also known as snowplows, removing obstacles out of their kids' path, or helicopter parents who hover about and micromanage every aspect of their child's life. Since they won't let their children do anything alone, the children can't learn to overcome challenges by themselves. Research infers that these children don't like to solve difficult problems, lack perseverance, and may even procrastinate in protest when something requires a lot of effort. Since most research on parenting is based on self-reports and was done in the US and Europe, it is not clear how strongly the observed effects will hold up in
Hello, welcome. Yes, please. I want your thoughts and your perspectives. Like I said, the focus is on the result of the kind of parenting styles that we saw, or what the resultant behaviors can actually lead, or what type of end product we will see, number one. And the second focus is the kind of parenting style most prevalent in India. Yeah. Any thoughts, perspectives? I'm sorry, I do have a lot of perspectives coming in on the chat as well, but I thought since it's a closed group, I thought it's convenient if we share it orally. Just raise your hands and you'll be unmuted. Yes, I think I see a hand. Yes, Mr. Arun.
It is, it depends on the class of people that we see these days. And you will find that among the educated class and the so-called elite, the helicopter parenting is most common.
Okay, thank you. And what is the prevalent, you feel that you see helicopter parenting in India as well, or is it just one type?
Yes, it is there in India as well, very much in India.
Okay, thank you. Any other perspectives? Yes, Ms. Kavita, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. I do also believe that that helicopter parenting is now becoming very common in India, and the one of the major reason is also there that nowadays we see that there is a single child. So in elite families, or in most of the families, even in the cities now, they are single. There is single child. So the whole focus is on that one particular child. and the you can say the over ruling, or when they want to do, you know, over protection, then these kind of things are happening, and the children are not becoming independent in that case. So that is creating a lot of issues.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Rashmi once again, sir.
Yes.
I feel that yes, to continue with that helicopter parents, because in most of the public schools we have to face the same situation. The major issue which we are facing right now as a result of parents overprotecting is the children are unable to cope with failure. They are unable to accept that they have not done well in a test, or they have failed in a particular competition. We face so much of emotional trauma. We have to literally counsel them a lot. We have to advise them a lot, because they are unable to take failure because of this only. The parents don't prepare them for all these things.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. True. Any other perspectives?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Mr. Rajesh, I believe. Please go ahead.
Yeah. You know, I felt looking at the various styles, sometimes the parenting style is situational, is what I felt, because it has given me a thought about when I was a child and when now I am as a parent. Okay. So, and living in smaller towns versus, you know, in a city kind of an environment where child is probably more informed, or you know, is pushing the parent in terms of what should be the parenting style in a city versus in a small town where I lived. You know, it was more traditional way of parenting. So I could see a relative parenting style based on the situation. That is my perspective.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, very true. Situational. Yes, Miss Shri. Hold on, we're unmuting. Miss Shri Devi, I believe.
Yes, sir. Good
Miss
evening.
Shri Devi. Miss Shri Devi, please go ahead. Yes, please.
Yes, sir. I think we can't judge parents because everybody will be different in their style, probably the way they have been brought up, and they may follow the same kind of parenting style, or they may differ in their parenting style also. But I believe in India, permissive and authoritative is most prevalent. I may be wrong, but I believe so. Because permissive, if both parents are working, whenever they try to spend time with their children, they may think that I don't want to control my child because the time which I spend with my child is very less. So they may say yes for each and everything. So as a result, the child will not know when to say no and how to say no and how to accept the no when it comes from their parents. On the other hand, now we have access to many parenting books and so many things, and we read a lot about how we have to bring up our children. So I think authoritative parents are also high because they try to develop a meaningful conversation with their parents, children. And I think these both are prevalent in India nowadays. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Yes, Ms. Sheetal, please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So, I felt after looking into this video that what we are focusing on is on the parents, but I look into it from the other side as well. That it is not only the right now, from my viewpoint, it is the helicopter parenting, but it is not only because of the parents. It can be also pushed from the child as well, because the child compares himself from the other kids who are getting more facilities, or he's looking into his peers who are getting more facilities from their parents, which is being complained of at home, and that may also force the parents to follow the kid's needs and to help him to such extent that it may lead to a helicopter parenting.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. So, see, just to play the devil's advocate, there is sometimes when we look at the video like that, we can very easily, we think we can very easily distinguish which is an ideal sort of a parenting model. Yeah. So if I may just throw this thought and out into the audience here. Steve Jobs, yeah, what kind of a parenting style would you think his parents would have had? The reason why I'm throwing this thought across is they say, or there is some research which indicates that often neglectful parents, the resultant of having neglectful parents is a very creative but submissive child. Children of neglectful parents often are very creative. This is a thought which has come out. Yeah. So that then again, raises. So there was another perspective on, maybe it is situational. In India, probably it's a mix of all the existing styles. Very true. Most of the parenting in India, again, another thought which was shared is most of the parenting style is based on how my parents did it. Yeah, we take some leaves, we take some lessons from there, we build on it, and we move on. So therefore, then I think if we trace it back to our parents, grandparents, great grandparents, then I think the Indian parenting style will be a result of the scriptures that existed, years ago, which then got passed down through, through the society over generations, and that's where we are. So yeah, coming back to the discussion at hand. So one of the purposes of actually having this discussion is, is to actually try to identify, an answer to what we see in teens today. I see a chat message from Ms. Kavariti Dutt. I'll just read it out. Parenting styles can be determined by cultural factors too. In a traditionally patriarchal society like ours, parenting has by and large been authoritarian. Today, parents are aspirational and tend to be helicopter parents, micromanaging their children. Yes, ma'am, very true. We've understood the result of helicopter parents. What would be the result of the traditional sort of a parenting style or the authoritarian kind of a parenting style? We saw examples where try to connect with, we see learners, we see students day in and day out. Try to connect with the mannerisms that the students display, and you'll try to, and then you'll be able to try to, identify, okay, what could be the parenting styles based on this result. So I'm actually trying to encourage you to, work backwards. You have the students, you can observe, there's observable behavior in classrooms or in our institutions. Try to connect this observable behavior to, what the actual parenting style could have been. Yeah. So that's one exercise where it'll probably, in doing so, my thought is that we'll be able to arrive at answers to these questions that, are troubling us. I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint and share a couple of okay, we were talking about parenting styles, and these are observable behaviors, which we can use to then connect back to, probable parenting styles that could have been. They say in ages 10 to 14, in intellectual development, you'll see these kind of observational behaviors, emotional development, physical development, and social development. I'll leave this on your screen for a minute or two for you to just have a look at it. Let me expand it. So you'll see a lot of these things between the age group of, 10 to 14. You'll see strong emotions at display. You'll see a shift of thinking. You'll see that the children will start enjoying the social aspect of learning. And in emotional, this thing, there'll be a complete roller coaster. They will start exploring risky behaviors. They'll, start giving the silent treatment when they're angry. In physical development, you will see a lot of silly behaviors. Peer pressure suddenly becomes very big. Cliches and tight-knit groups start forming. Yeah. In social development, you will see a lot of focus on personal hygiene as puberty is stepped in. They'll develop a sense of, sexuality. Between 15 to 18, these are some indicators that you might see. You'll see a lot of, abstract thinking in this age group. Logic and reasoning abilities have expanded. They are able to understand other people's point of views here. In the previous age group, there would not be so much of acceptance to the other people's point of view. Under emotional, some things you might see is high tension and conflict between youth and parents. No physical affection from parents possible. Silent treatment, risky behavior has expanded here. In physical development, you might, see the need for sleep. They may appear older than their age, etc. In social development, you'll see that now they are slowly less influenced by peer pressure. They're more likely to seek advice from peers and friends, and so on. Yeah. Couple of facts I think we're already familiar. Young people live up or down to expectations we set for them. Yes, very true. What we do to model healthy resilience strategies for our children is more important than anything we say about them. Again, not rocket science. We're aware what we do to model actually is what gets, is the message that gets picked up. And calm parents equal to calm children. What we permit persists. Yes, very true. So I'm very quickly going to run through, or I'm actually going to leave you with this, this model for those of us who would like to, explore a path on how then do we build resilience in teenagers. Yeah, this is a small model which was put forward by a gentleman known as Kenneth Ginsberg. Yeah, he talks about the 7 C's of building resilience, and he says that these 7 C's or 7 competencies, if focused on, help to build resilience. Yeah, I'm very quickly going to see. One is character, building a strong sense of worth. Yeah. Second is competence, having the ability to develop skills so that they can trust their own judgments. Confidence, solid belief in one's abilities. Yeah. Contribution, realize that the world is a better place because they are in it. Control on outcomes and decisions and actions. Coping, being better prepared. You've already, how to understand or how to handle challenges. And connection. Strong family ties means strong security and strong values. Yeah. So, and lastly, of course, conflict. This can be very useful in team development. And we've spoken about control and monitoring. Yeah, where the need for it was already shared in the thoughts and perspectives that were shared. I'm going to very quickly take you through a couple of, I won't call them, though I've titled it parenting tips. These are some aspects which you will see day in and day out in your lives. Yeah. For instance, here's something which I want to share with you. The age group that we are talking about, teenagers, often have this imaginary audience that they build around themselves. This beliefs arises, from the larger concept of adolescent egocentrism. So your teens are actually, whatever they do, whatever the action, small actions, small behaviors, most of the time they are playing to this imaginary audience. Yeah, you will see suddenly, hairs being combed in a particular style. You will see a lot of focus on physical appearance in the teens, etc. So while while it may seem out of the ordinary, they're actually playing to their imaginary audience. Yeah, so it's a very important concept to sort of grapple around. Again, they are starting to develop their own personal values and beliefs. Yeah, so you'll see them becoming more aware of social issues. They might take up some political or some issue and sort of believe in it and propagate it, fight for it. They start to question their faith, claim they're going to live a different lifestyle, etc. You'll see all these things slowly taking shape in these years. They're all part of them developing their own personal values and beliefs. So parents or guardians could aim to give them the space they need to express themselves. However, you cannot compromise on safety. Yeah, you have to ensure that basic responsibilities and safety is always addressed, because like I said, whatever you permit will persist. So you cannot compromise on safety and basic responsibilities, but beyond that, it's a good idea to let them express themselves and explore their own personal values and beliefs. So yes, true, confidence and self-worth, this is also slowly taking shape. Loneliness and isolation can lead to problems later. Their confidence, you might see it wavering, very sensitive to criticism. Yes. So while it is very essential to keep an eye on signs of loneliness and isolation, we should also not be very quick to term these things as depression. Often today you'll see people jump the gun and sort of even basic loneliness or basic isolation, which can be very easily addressed, often get termed as depression, and which is not the case. Yeah. See, like I said, depression is something it's best sometimes connected to therapy work, because there's a very thin line between loneliness, isolation, and actually being depressed. Yeah, sometimes it is loneliness and isolation in the guise of depression, which is also at play. Yeah, so in order to actually trigger off depression, you'll need to see a lot of these behaviors which are on your screen. Just one or two or some aspects of these behaviors need not actually indicate depression. Yeah. Reducing screen time, is a question that is often asked. I think there are many ways to help reduce screen time, which are already existing. You can find a lot of things on this. The information is present, but one thing that I have seen, that actually gives a lot of results is actually encouraging physical activity in a way which, it actually merges with the family time. Meaning, for example, one good idea I've seen is where people encourage children to pick up a game or a sport or something where the parents also involve themselves. Yeah. So that often, on the sidelines of you can have very strong conversations on the sidelines of a badminton court, or when you're, in the changing room of the swimming pool. You can, sometimes very strong conversations can come out in these areas. So this will then actually lead to reduction of screen time by default. Lastly, being mindful of time. Lastly, I would like to sort of leave you with this differentiation of these three terms. Very, very important. A lot of us hear that, a lot of us, this multitasking is a term which is quite prevalent nowadays, and a lot of us hear this term being used interchangeably. But the fact is, the way our human brains are, programmed, it is not possible to multitask. Yeah, humans are not capable of multitasking in the first place. So what you're actually seeing when you say multitasking, what you're actually seeing in play is continuous partial attention. Yeah, you call it multitasking, then it moves into that space. You're actually switching between different tasks at speeds. So when you want to multitask, you try to switch faster. Thereby you're not able to give adequate focus to either of the tasks. And then there is, of course, continuous partial attention, where we are switching between tasks so fast that you're checking an email at the same time, probably sending a text, and have your homework books open where you're trying to read a paragraph, and you're switching between these things so fast that at the end of the day, neither of the tasks actually get the focus that they deserve. So yeah, these are some thoughts, as part of this thing. I think I'd like to pause here and step out of the presentation, and considering that where we are on time, I'd like to be open for discussions, questions, if there are any. Yeah, I see a couple of questions on the chat, but let's see if we can take them. Has been need of the hour. Okay. Steps to identify the aptitude of children in early age. I'm going to try to see if I can take on a couple of these questions. Yeah. One, Mr. Arun. The topic you've chosen has been need for the hour for almost 50 or more years. Can we take some concrete steps for the following? Steps to identify the aptitude of the children at an early stage. Yes, very, very important. But there is a school of thought which believes that we should not actually get into aptitude selection for children too early. There is a debate on what is the right age, which is still live. Some education methodologies indicate that you can actually map the children's brain before they enter primary school, and then sort of provide opportunities based on the brain mapping that happens. The second school of thought believes that at that age children can actually switch aptitudes very quickly. So it's always best to I try to identify the aptitude later, when they have reached secondary school or something like that. So there are different schools of thoughts around this prevalent. Number two, encourage parents to allow children to pursue their interests and skills. Yes, very true. I'm afraid this can only happen when information is disseminated to the parents in an appropriate way. Though the information is there, it needs to be passed out to the parents in an appropriate way, and I believe that's what's going to get maximum traction. This is not a recent development. It has actually since time immemorial. Very true. Uh, any attendance link for the session? I'm not very sure. Anonymous attendee, how do we deal with attraction they develop towards the other gender? It might be just a phase, but does this pose a serious problem if kids take things seriously? They may divert too. Okay, to address this question, I will focus on this particular. Hold on, let me just share my screen. Where am I? Where is it? Yeah. See, there are a couple of things as guardians, as parents, that we can, we can sort of, I won't use the word enforce, but there are a couple of practices that we can look at. Parents, on the parent side, we can try to enforce a curfew, which is already, it's been discussed. Establish ground rules. Number 3, be involved in your child's life. Meet your child's friends when and whenever possible. Know who they are. And the next one is very interesting. Parents should tend to, or should be, the child's standing excuse. Meaning sometimes when the child finds her or herself or himself in situations where, the child wants to come out of it, they can then use their parents as standing excuse and, be able to get out of it. We as parents then can then, therefore then, there's no harm in a parent, being blamed or being made the villain when a child does not want to go out with a particular set of friends. He or she can then very easily give the excuse of parents, see, my parents are not permitting, or something like that. So the idea is, you can be a standing excuse in your child's life. Know where your child is going. Revisit difficult topics. Follow up after the get together. Again, very important. Once the child has had probably a late night or an outing the previous evening, you spend some time the next day, as soon as possible after the get together or the outing. Spend some time, chat up on what the outing was about, what all happened, ask a few questions. So this then, gives you an insight into what's actually happening in the child's life and gives you better control. Understand socializing apps and social media. I'm afraid there's no way around this nowadays. Yeah, there are a lot of parents who believe that they find it a challenge to be in, to actually be in social media or in socializing apps, but there's just no way around it. From the teens side, teens need to keep their parents in the loop. Yeah. Number 2, they need to consider group dates. Number 3, meeting in public place, yeah, versus actually a non-public kind of a setting. Teens need to talk about consent. Teens need to keep track of what they eat and drink. Very, very important. They need to keep track of what they eat and drink when they go out or when they are on their own. Reaching out for help. Yeah, it's not just enough that the teen knows that they can reach out for help. They need to be sort of guided on what kind of situations, whom to call. Yeah, or call or text, or what is the appropriate way to reach out for help. What are the situations? How do you approach, the police? What are the things that you should tell the police? What are the ID document being with you, etc.? How do you interact with police if you're in need of help, etc.? The teens need to be able to recognize social abuse very quickly, so that then they can realize what's happening and then steer away out of it. Again, socializing apps and social media, I'm afraid a lot of teens are unaware of the security settings or privacy settings in some of these social apps. They're very, very important that they spend time understanding these. Yeah. So, though not addressing the question in entity, I hope we've given a direction. Yeah. A couple of, I see a couple of questions again come up. Can we have a PDF? Can we have the content? Yes, of course. We'll be more than happy to share this content being that was presented. We'll ensure that the content, the videos, etc., everything is made available to the organization. Anyone else? Any thoughts? You're most welcome to just raise your hand and share your thoughts before we conclude. Mr. Arun, before I have your thought, there is a Mr. Arun. Just give me a minute before I take your thought. There is a thought from Mr. Parul Agarwal. His statement is, I wish to know how we can create a healthy connect with those children who find it difficult to connect with parents without increasing the gap which is there. Mr. Parul, I think there are several ways in which we can do this. I'm afraid this is very contextual, but one of the ways which has seemed to work in most setting is try to find a common hobby or a common sport or a common game or some common, it can even be something as simple as stamp collecting. Try to find a common common sort of an activity or a passion or something and build on that. For instance, if you know that your child is there can also be an instant where suppose your child is interested in playing the mouth organ or the harmonica. You can actually try to pick up an instrument, try to learn the basics of the mouth organ, and then sort of set up a ground where you can make that first connect. Yeah. So how do we connect where there is a difficulty, where there is some issues? I'm afraid it's very contextual. You'll need each, there are different kinds of issues in different parent and children setting. I strongly believe that one way fits all method sometimes can end up doing more damage than it can actually be constructive. So we need to look all the aspects of the equation before prescribing ways forward. Yeah. Mr. Arun, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Actually, it was by mistake that I raised my hand, but now that you have given me an opportunity, I would like to stress on the last point that you made, that one way doesn't fit all. So one has to, whatever you have said, these are only guidelines, and they have to be taken judiciously as per the situation. So, and that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. If there are no other, I don't see any other hands raised. If there are no other hands raised, I'm going to close here, and I'm going to thank everyone for sharing your thoughts. What's made this this discussion more richer is the fact that you're willing to actually raise your hands, share your perspectives, and that's what's. I'm very happy that I did not have to actually run through do a dry run of a PowerPoint. It was very encouraging when we had thoughts from participants on the videos, on the content that was shared, which actually tabled most of what was in the PowerPoint anyway. We will be happy to make this content available. On that, I would also like to add, if there is a follow-up session which is needed, to address questions, to if specific attention to specific issues are needed, we'll be more than happy to have a follow-up session where specific or core issues can be addressed in a very specific and more detailed nature. Thank you all. Thank you so much for giving this team, both Shri Maheshwara ji and me, Dr. Shoury Kuttappa. Thank you all for giving us this opportunity, giving us your time this evening, spending 90 minutes on this discussion. I hope it has added value. Thank you so much.